Hey everyone, you're tuned into InfoQuench with Jeff.
And Amy. Join us as we talk about anything.
And everything.
All the stuff that makes life interesting.
So let's get to it. Hey everybody, and welcome to InfoQuench. I'm your host, Jeff.
I'm Amy, and this is part 2 of Jeff and Amy talking about wine.
Part 2, and we learned so much the first one, all the different kinds of wine, how they're processed, what vintage means, all kinds of great things.
I know, all kinds of wonderful little tidbits. And one of the questions you asked me that I was stumped on was Cabernet Sauvignon. You asked me if that was actually French. So we did talk about the fact that red wines are named after unless they're a blend, they're named after the grape that they're made from, and the variety of grape. And one of the varieties of grapes are Cabernet Sauvignon. You said, is that a French term? And I said, I don't think it is. And then I was thinking maybe it's Latin because a lot of times varieties of things.
What did you come up with?
What did I come up with? Well, the etymology,
which is
origin
the
of
words. Study the origin.
Is actually quite uncertain with regard to Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's thought to be possibly from the Médoc dialect of southwestern France. So I would say you are more right than I. And
I was just guessing. I didn't know.
From what I read, the ultimate origin is uncertain. It could also be late Latin. It could be derived from Caput nigrum, which is it means black vine.
Ah,
yes.
Interesting.
So the word Sauvignon is believed to be derived from the French word sauvage, which means wild.
You know what I think we're doing right now?
What?
We're quenching people's thirst
for information. Yes.
Because this is really interesting stuff. I bet you a lot of people drink Cabernet Sauvignon and don't even really think about
we should call
etymology.
Our podcast? What should we call it? If we
should call it Cabernet Sauvignon.
We're quenching people's thirst for information. Can we think of a...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
clever
going with
name to be come up with.
I know. Now you know, people. Now you know.
That's where it came from. Mm-hmm. It was Jeff and Amy's... It was our brainchild. I remember we were trying to...
I still remember when we came up with the logo. We had all these pieces of paper. We were like mad scientists.
Good times.
Yep.
Good times. So yes, Sauvignon from the French sauvage, meaning wild, is it's possible that it was derived from that, and the grape is from a wild Vitis vinifera vine native to France. So the Cabernet Sauvignon is very particular to France, but there's if you search, it's amazing how much there is around this, and people have researched the origins of this particular grape, and it has been believed to be used in other countries.
You pretty much name the type of alcohol, and you can do a deep dive into it.
Well, that's really right. You can just deep dive, literally,
go.
Dive right into that vodka.
Yeah.
Or you could get online and do a figurative deep dive, which is not nearly as fun.
Look up the etymological backgrounds of the wine.
Let's talk about some tips around wine.
Okay.
So this is one that I didn't realize until later in life, but when you are holding your wine glass, how should you hold it?
Always by the stem
absolutely.
And with a finger, just two fingers.
Well, they don't really specify. I mean, that seems a little precarious.
Your thumb and your forefinger.
We got to balance risk here with.
I'm drinking wine now.
Etiquette, but definitely by the stem and closer to the base. So the further away from the bowl of the wine, the better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
The thought around that is that
you don't want to warm the wine up.
Well, yes, or cool it down, depending if you're drinking a wine that should be served more cool. Your hands may warm it up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the opposite effect of if
Is
you're
it in your
drinking...
glass long enough, though? Really? I mean, to get warm or cold? It's just,
my glass specifically?
It's just, particularly your glass. Absolutely not.
Then the answer is no. It's
actually,
not. It doesn't make a difference.
I'm the one drinking wine right now, and you're not, so...
when you're drinking, say, brandy from you're doing a lot of...
Yeah, I know, that was really loud. We might have to edit that one out. That's just my chair, everybody, just so you know.
That's Jeff shifting.
Yeah.
Being all shifty. When you're drinking brandy from a snifter...
Snifter? They're called snifter? That's interesting.
Well, now you're making me second. Is it not called snifter? Brandy snifter?
Snifter?
What do you think it's called?
How would you spell snifter?
Well, exactly as it sounds.
Snifter?
Ah, damn.
Pass over that snifter, dude.
Well,
that kind of thing?
As I Google this brandy glass... But the idea
No,
of drinking brandy is that you drink it in a glass that
I'm
your
not
palm actually
guessing.
warms the
I'm
brandy,
not,
right?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I've never heard that word before, snifter. So you're really teaching me something, this one.
Oh, well,
If that's what indeed it is.
yes. So a snifter is actually, it's a type of stemware that's got a very short stem.
Ah.
And the majority of the glass, it's a wide bottom glass, very narrow at the top, and it's used for things like bourbon, brandy, or whiskey.
Yeah.
So when you're drinking from a snifter, you tend to cradle it in the palm of your hand, and it warms the beverage.
Ah.
So in that particular scenario, you're actually trying to alter the temperature with your hand. But with wine, you are supposed to hold it from the base. And I found this interesting because
I have a question for you about wine.
I hold that thought. What
Okay.
is your question for that wine? I'll hold my thought.
Why is it that they don't cool wine down?
Well, they do, and we're
red
going
wine.
to we're going to talk about that.
Okay. I figured you had that covered.
We are. We are. So not only does holding the wine by its stem help keep the serving temperature of the wine intact
Right.
to make it, so that you are able to taste all the elements at the, utmost way that they should be.
Right.
That
Go on.
was not very.
The utmost way they
That
should
was
be.
not very articulate, but you got what I was trying to. You were picking up what I was laying down.
Did our listeners though?
I hope so.
Okay.
But the other thing is when you grab the glass of wine by the actual glass,
Yeah,
you end up covering it in greasy old fingerprints.
you do.
And if you want to be super classy and bring it to the next OCD level, which I always do, you should concentrate on always taking a drink from your wine glass from the same spot. Particularly if you're wearing lipstick or
I
lip
thought you were
gloss.
going to say like get some tongs. Don't even touch your glass.
Don't you touch your glass.
And then drink.
It's like a science experiment where where you'd use the
Beakers and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going with this, but
yeah.
okay.
Good job, beakers. That's how I was going with it.
Okay, it's a good guess then.
Okay. Yeah, no, but drinking it from the same spot will stop you from getting those lipstick or lip gloss or just plain greasy old whatever you had for supper lips all
That's
right
what I
around
do.
the rim of your glass.
Right.
And keeping your fingers on the stem will keep the bowl of the glass clean. So those are some tips if you want to look super suave drinking your wine at the restaurant.
Yeah.
We got you covered. So, according to Wine Enthusiast magazine, a good thing to invest in is good stemware. And when
Good
we're talking stemware, we're talking the glasses that you drink your wine out of.
Right.
So,
The snifters.
What do you look-
Well, no, not for wine.
no,
Okay, go
no,
ahead.
we've
sorry.
covered that. No,
We should do like a Pee Wee's Playhouse thing where there's like a word of the podcast.
Bunsen burners.
Bunsen burger.
That's the word I was trying to think of
Bunsen
earlier.
burgers.
I was trying to think of Bunsen burners with the, anyways,
Okay,
in the
Gotcha,
beakers,
in
and you're
beakers.
trying to heat them over the Bunsen burners.
like a science experiment.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, moving on. So, how do you invest in decent stemware? What do you look for? That's a good question. You should look for glasses with a medium-sized bowl, so they're versatile enough for all wines. And you should look for wines that have thin rims, because that makes the wine taste better. Why does it make it taste better? I have no friggin' clue.
It
But
might be because of the.
I have to agree. Do you
Wow.
remember we had glasses for a while that we came by that were like I think they were from Mexico or something, and they had like a cobalt rim. They were very thick glass.
I don't remember those at all.
Well, the rim of the glass itself was very thick, and I find they're common in Mexico or like in South American countries. They'll often serve their glasses with that cobalt
Like
glass
goblets?
ring. Yes, and the glass is super thick. And I have never really enjoyed drinking out of those types of glasses. And apparently, a thinner rimmed glass, like a crystal or something, actually is supposed to make the wine taste better.
Maybe because it aerates, whatever the word is.
Aerates?
Aerates the the air and makes it.
Well, I mean, that would have to do more with the size of the
permeates
bowl, I
through
guess.
The wine and stuff.
But yeah,
just making
maybe it
crap
has to
up
do
now.
with where your tongue is laying against the thicker rim versus the thinner rim.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Some physics in there. So yeah, look for a medium-sized bowl. I tend to get the ones with the giant bowls because then it's just less filling.
Yeah,
Right?
and
Less
you can
trips
put
to the
more
to the bathroom
wine in
and to the
it, yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah. Not less filling as far as into your belly, though.
No, but less.
But less filling it up.
Yes,
Yeah.
less requests for
Gotcha.
refills. You just get a giant bowl, but it's incredible how big, how much wine one of the bigger glasses will hold. You can literally dump a whole bottle of wine,
Yeah.
well, at least a half a bottle. Now, just for reference, a typical glass of wine is only about 5 ounces. So when you're filling out those quizzes about how much alcohol you drink in the course of a week, 5 ounces is what you should be saying if you're drinking a glass of wine. But the vast majority of us are probably drinking far more than that if we're using a large, bold glass.
Yeah.
There's about 5 ounces of, 5 regular sized glasses of wine in a bottle.
Oh, yes.
So five
Okay.
5 ounces glasses, and I think most people are probably over pouring a little of that. So,
I think so.
and
In this
that's
household,
fine.
they
It's
are.
just an awareness thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awareness thing. Hand washing is always the best to keep those wine glasses looking good. Now, I happen to know that I have some wine glasses that I can get away with putting in the top rack of the dishwasher, but then I have some others with very thin rims.
Yeah.
We've already lost 2 casualties
Wash
of me
them
trying to put
by hand.
I really try to put anything that can go into a dishwasher.
Absolutely.
I do.
Why wash it by hand?
Life's too short, people, to be washing stuff by hand.
And it would be lonely without the rest of those dishes.
But we used to have 2 of those big, nice, the one that you're drinking out of there with the nice
Yeah.
big glass.
We only have one now?
Sorry, we used to have 4,
Yeah.
and now we're down to 2,
Oh.
and then I stopped putting them in the dishwasher
It's a good idea.
because the banging around
We've had 2 for
gave
quite a while.
us some casualties.
We really have.
We
as
have.
long as I can remember.
Yeah. So
Kind
once
of.
we switched out of the dishwasher with those. So the moral of the story is, at your own risk, get to know your glassware, become one with them. Try to have a good understanding of what type of abuse they can take, and then decide accordingly what level of risk you want to take versus your
Dishwasher
amount of
or
time
not?
of washing by hand.
That is the question.
It really doesn't take a long time to wash them by hand if you wash them straight away.
Yeah. No,
You know?
it doesn't at all.
And they're usually, that you don't get the cloudiness and other things that can happen from going through a dishwasher.
Why do people swish their wine like this?
A lot of times it is to add air.
Air? And
yes.
so it adds the flavor palette, shall we say?
Yes.
It adds to the
It brings
flavor.
out more of the
bouquet?
aromas, the bouquets.
Yeah. Ooh, wow.
I'm not getting into
Sounding like a-
sommelier level here.
No. Okay.
But
Let's continue on with the Wine 101, Part 2.
as Jeff's sniffing into his glass there. I'm just sniffing to make sure it's, I grabbed the right glass. Did I grab the right one? So keep your wine comfortable. So the worst place, and this isn't with regard to temperature, but steadiness. One of the worst places you can keep your wine is on top of a refrigerator because of the heat
Oh, absolutely.
that comes up from the back of the refrigerator, and also the
Might as well-
vibrations from the constant running of your refrigerator can wreak havoc.
You might as well leave it in the oven on low.
Well, wine likes to be kept in a nice, still, quiet, dark place, which is why they build wine cellars.
Well, because it's still aging.
They want to be. It should be in temperature controlled, out of direct sunlight, and basically the coolest, darkest place you got. So if even if you're in an apartment, a closet is the best way to be storing your wine.
Mm-hmm. Not white wine, though.
Well, the worst place to store wine is on top of the refrigerator. But if you are getting wine prepped, you got to get it up to the right temperature. So that's when refrigerators come into handy. So in terms of serving red wine, generally red wines should be served, and I've always thought room temperature, but they should be actually served slightly warmer than room temperature.
Slightly warmer. Oh, interesting.
So, I'm sorry. Slightly cooler. Slightly cooler
That's
than
what
room
That's
temperature.
what I figured.
Slightly cooler. So it depends on the wine too. But if you want just a quick rule of thumb that you can remember, reds are warm, whites are cold.
Yeah, we knew that.
And sparklings are ice
remember.
cold.
Yeah. Oh,
Which
yeah.
is why you'll see people who throw the champagne in the freezer.
Prosecco and stuff.
Don't
like
forget
that.
the champagne in the freezer. That's disastrous.
No, don't
As
do
many
that.
a New Year's
Have we
Eve
ever
gone
done that?
awry
We've
has
never done
discovered. I've been at a New Year's Eve party when someone threw champagne in the freezer and forgot about it.
And it just
Wasn't a good story.
it blew up.
It blew up.
Glass and all.
Well, I don't know if it broke, but I think the cork
Okay.
blew and made a mess.
I gotcha.
So yes, red wine slightly cooler than room temperature. So that would mean like 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. And then our white wines, you want them slightly warmer than fridge temperature. So it's not like straight out of the fridge. You take
Right.
them out of the fridge and then you let them warm up just a little bit.
Right.
Around 7 to 12 degrees Celsius. Then your sparkling wines, you want them ice cold, like 3 to 7 degrees.
Yeah.
Then same with your, certain whites, rosé wines. But as you get into the richer, more full-bodied wines, you might want to serve those a little bit warmer to bring out more flavor.
Oh, yeah.
Still cold or cool, but a little bit warmer than you might do a rosé wine, for instance. And same with the reds. As you kind of get into those more bolder, heavy-bodied reds, you want to serve those a little warmer. So a light red wine, it might be 15 degrees Celsius. You might want to move more towards the 20 degrees Celsius of.
You can actually buy probably, contraptions that would bring wine up to temperature.
Oh yeah, they've got all the contraptions.
Everything you can think of.
You just press a button and it gets you the perfect temperature.
In like 10 seconds.
And then dessert wines are all over the map. It really depends on what style of dessert wine you're having and what
Right.
temperature you should serve it. That being said, I mean that's complicated. No, let's be realistic here. Most of us aren't walking around to a dinner party with our thermometer.
No.
A good rule of thumb is whites cool, reds warm, and sparkling ice cold.
Yeah.
That alone I think is enough.
Oh, absolutely.
So one way, though, to know if the temperature is a bit off, if a wine starts to burn your nose when you smell it because of a smell of alcohol, it can be too warm. So you might want to try cooling it down. So if
That's
you can smell,
temperature dependent and how it smells.
so if you can smell too much alcohol coming off of it, it could be an indication it's being served too warm. So you should try cooling it down. And if it doesn't have any flavor, you might want to try warming it up. So, for instance, if you store your red wines in the fridge, you want to bring them out and get them down to closer to room temperature before you serve them. And that's true, I think, of a lot of things. If you think about when you're tasting a very cold beverage, you don't get the flavors of the beverage as much as if something were a warmer beverage. Right? So the
Yes.
same is true as wine. And I've even heard now it's become acceptable for people to throw an ice cube in a glass of white wine. And there was a time when that was considered quite crass because they thought it, watered down,
Taste.
a beautiful white wine. But it's become a general practice that
It just
it's
brings
okay.
out the flavor.
Throw an ice cube in there if it improves your wine drinking experience.
So
her up.
I have an interesting question about wine. So wine obviously is better after it ages. So the longer wine
Not all
sits-
wines.
Okay, no, not really.
Certain wines are.
Okay.
Good wines are.
Good wines are.
A lot of wines kind of reach their peak goodness even after as little as a year.
Really?
But if you're looking at a more high-end range of wines, then that would be true.
Okay. Well, so my question is what technically causes that to happen? What makes the taste better as time passes? Obviously, it's some kind of chemical reaction while it ages that makes the wine taste better, right?
Right. Are you going to lead into the answer that you researched
No,
for this
I'm
question
wondering
you
if
have?
I wonder if you knew, or our listeners know. Maybe perhaps you could get a hold
Let's
of
listen.
us
See.
on.
Hear?
Huh?
You hear any answers out there?
So you don't have an answer to that? Thought you might.
I'm just fucking you.
Thought you might.
Jeff prides himself on throwing me a stumper each one.
This is just an interesting because
I've always thought it had to do with, but I'm just making this stuff up now. But if it's being aged in a barrel, if it's like everything just
this isn't
takes
info
more time.
lies. This is info quench.
Improvise?
Info lies.
Info
I'm just making
lies.
things up. Info prize.
Yes. If I don't know, I'll tell you. I don't know. One suggestion I would make around wine is if you find a wine you like, take note.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to remember. And then, so for instance, if you're at a restaurant and you're really enjoying the wine, write down the name of the wine from the menu because chances are you're going to find it in your local liquor store far cheaper and just as enjoyable.
We like to find the best cheap wine. And we have, I think, grocery store wine.
So when you're writing it down, don't think just the name. Write the producer, the vintage. Mm-hmm. So if you remember from the last episode, that's the year that it was produced, the name. Maybe make note of what you paid for it in the restaurant, and then you'll get an idea if you're getting a good deal when you're buying it at the liquor store.
Yeah.
And you can also, if you want to, really get into wine, note maybe some of the aromas and flavors that you liked, the overall impression of why you liked it, because that may help you find other wines that you enjoy. I mean,
what is it about that cheap wine that we like so much?
that price tag, baby.
I know. Besides the price tag, baby. Besides the price tag. What
Well,
is it full bodied, right?
You mean the grocery store wine we buy, the
Yeah, was it
Cabernet?
Liberty?
It's a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
It's full bodied. It does have a good price tag.
Yeah, it's
I
like
find
18
some
bucks.
penny or some wines will have like a coppery taste or something to them. This
Yeah.
one doesn't.
Okay.
Again, it's a matter of preference, but I know you and we really enjoy this one.
Yeah.
And this one's great drank as the Amy Schumer special, which is when you're like,
yeah.
I want to have a glass of wine, but you know what? It's a weeknight and I've already had 6. So maybe my 7th needs to be a little bit lighter. I jest, people. I jest. I wouldn't be able to be putting these sentences together if I was on
I wish I had
number
like
6.
a laugh track right after that.
So the Amy Schumer special is you just put a little bit of wine, a couple inches of wine in the bottle of your glass, a regular drinking glass, because
And then do that
then it makes it
2,000
even
times.
less alcohol-y. Add a little bit of lime juice and lemon juice, and we buy it by the bottle, lemon and lime juice.
We do.
And nobody's got. We don't have time to be squeezing fresh limes and lemons all the time, so we just buy the bottles. Real. It says real lemon juice and real wine.
It's not,
lime
but
juice.
it tastes fine to us.
Yes, it's perfect. So a couple squirts of that in with the wine, and then fill it up with some like club soda, or like if you have a soda stream, or just water if you don't have either of those, and some ice cubes. Give it a stir, and it's a nice light sangria.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great way to have a summer drink without a ton of alcohol content, and it's a good way to get in the mood for recording a wine podcast
Yeah.
without a full glass of wine. So.
Is that your rosé? Anyway.
No, this is actually
you
a flavoring that I got from the Corn Crib, locally. The
Oh.
Corn Crib. It's a lime cherry mix.
Stevia? No.
Yes, I think, is it stevia? Yeah, I think it's
Stevia?
stevia as a sweetener.
Okay, cool. Wow, learning
That's
so
an
much
aside.
about wine.
Just an alternative to I like regular water, but that's for another podcast when you really want to be bored.
Wait for our water podcast,
More-
everybody. You'll be
Let's talk about
drowning
the
in
fact that
info.
I've been refilling our water cooler by hand since the start of the pandemic.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Because it was too much of a risk to be going out and about. We were minimizing our trips, even to go to the grocery store. So the idea of making a special trip to the, convenience store where we would get our water bottles for our cooler seemed a little bit too risky. So I have moved to filling them up with a funnel from our tap,
Yeah.
and it works really well. We have great
Fill it up halfway.
our St. John City Water has actually won awards for the quality. We actually have great tasting
great.
water, but I like the water cooler because it just keeps it really cold, and then it also has a really hot setting for just making instant coffee or tea.
Get that water award.
So it's important.
Oh,
That
it
means
is.
It's good, healthy water to drink, and
I just wondered what a water award even looks like. Is it like a drop? I don't know. What is it?
it's fleeting. You have to get it
What
before it
is that?
evaporates.
What is that trophy?
And
Is
so
it
I've been
frozen
filling
water?
up our water bottles, and eventually we'll exchange them in too. But I'm trying to make sure that they stay nice and clean, that they're not getting any kind of bacteria or anything in them. And we have a self-cleaning water cooler, so it's been a great way to save money and also minimize any kind of public trips to the store during a pandemic. So
Right.
just a little bit about that.
Another tip.
Yeah. So
Info to quench your mind.
you can find great wine on the cheap. And
we just
South
said.
America is a great region to be checking for great wine bargains. And I remember Peter Smith, who owns a Happiness Wine Bar here
Yeah.
in Happiness is an awesome little wine bar on Princess Street here in uptown St. John, New Brunswick. And he had told me once that Argentinian wines were a great value for the money. You can get a very good quality wine from Argentina for not a lot of money. And so I often go to that section in the liquor store.
Incidentally, that is where we discovered the wine that we love the most, Rudeberg. It's where we first
Well,
had
no, we
Rudeberg.
didn't, because that one's from South America.
What?
Oh, well, I'm referring to Argentina, but you mean that's what we actually had at Happiness Wine Bar?
Yeah, I'm out of South America. I'm just
okay.
saying that the first time we had Rudeberg was there. I don't know, where is that from again? Where is it?
Yeah, Rudeberg's from South America, but
Oh.
yeah, Peter was who had recommended
Yeah.
it. He was a wine he was
had it
carrying
for
at the
sale.
time at Happiness. So definitely reach out, try different areas. Don't get stuck on French wines or Italian and not branch out, because you may find that there is great value in good wine in other regions of the world. And then there's the idea of old wines versus new wines. So the old country wines.
The vintage.
Well, more so not the year it was made, but just the fact of where it was made. So
Oh, I
wines
see.
from like North America, made in Canada and the U.S., would be considered like a New World wine, whereas those
But
made
equally delicious.
in oh, absolutely, but those made in Europe would be considered more of the old world, from the old country. Don't snub wine in a box or a can. And, there's a lot of top producers of wine who are now using those formats. And it's a great way when you just want to have a glass or you need wine for cooking. And it lasts for months. Well, I don't know whose house is it really lasting for months in.
Not ours. Gone that day.
I don't know if anyone was tracking the time frame, but
Gone that hour.
but they're also great. If you get one that's a bit of a dud, you can still use a cheaper wine. It's great for spritzers or for maybe making a nice sangria, adding some fruit and fruit juices and some sparkling water to it. And cans are great too. We recently, we packed
that
a picnic and you get some great cans, good quality like Lindemans. Great cans of wine, nice small servings, just something to get a taste.
Absolutely.
And, without carting a full bottle that makes a spectacle of yourselves and in
It's an
glasses
excellent way
and
to
such.
sample wines that you've never tasted, too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a big sample of them. In restaurants, don't be afraid to ask your server to adjust the temperature of your wine. So if you're buying a whole bottle and they've brought you a warm white bottle of wine, well, ask them to chill it. They may be able to bring out a bucket and with some ice, and make sure that you speak up for if you need some temperature adjustments. It's usually pretty easily done, and it can definitely affect your enjoyment of the wine. So be sure to ask for that. Also, when you're ordering from the wine menu, never go for that second cheapest bottle of wine. So how there's always, when you're going
It's marked
through,
up.
you see that little house wine and you see the least expensive. Well, that's the one that's selling the most frequently. Nobody's going for the second bottle of wine, and because that, it doesn't get turned over as much. So you may have a bottle that's been open for a while, and usually there's restaurant will put a lot of stock into what they're promoting as their house wine. So it's usually a fairly good quality. It's one that they're using to represent the restaurant and they're
Yes.
quite proud of. So it's worth
House
giving
wine.
it a try, even if it's the cheapest wine on the menu. Give it a shot. And it's a great way just to kind of broaden your horizons and,
Absolutely, I agree with
branch
that.
out into new areas.
That makes sense.
Watch when they're topping your wine up. Sometimes when you're ordering a bottle, they'll come and automatically top it up. Keep an eye on that, and if they're topping it up too quickly, let them know. I remember being at a Japanese restaurant in Cuba on a resort, and they topped up my rosé wine, and I actually, because we were in a resort, we didn't even buy it, so I had lost track of even how much I had.
Yeah.
And it made for a pretty hungover,
You got pretty loopy.
hangover dive with the dolphins the next day.
A lot of
Those
cultures,
poor
that's the
dolphins.
way it works, That's the way it works. Like when I taught English in Korea, if you left a little bit of alcohol in your glass, well, then they didn't fill it. But if you drank it down, the eldest at the table filled the glass and then they would keep doing that all night.
Oh, and that was back in my 20s, and I should have known better, but I didn't. And so if people are topping up your wine glass at any point in a restaurant or elsewhere, keep an eye on that and don't overindulge. And there's a reason that people actually come and get you to smell the wine and taste the wine when you do order a bottle of wine, and it's not to find out whether you like it. That's actually not why they're doing it. They want you just to make sure that the wine is good.
Yes.
Because there's a possibility of wine going bad, and that's known as corked wine. It's not wine that has cork floating into it, but actually there's certain cork that can be contaminated with what's called TCA or cork taint, and it gives off a very distinct smell and taste. And
That any sommelier would know.
it only happens in a small percentage of wines, probably 5%, but it's a
It does
very
happen.
I guess distinct color, and almost like a moldy basement or wet newspaper. So
Wow.
often when they're coming to get you to smell it, it's not just to see if you like it. They just want to make sure it's not a wine that's gone bad.
Absolutely. That makes
So,
sense.
and that's called corked wine if it's gone bad.
Do we get all of our info on wine? in
Well,
this?
I could probably go on forever, but I
Should
think
we do
we're
a part 3?
no, I think we're good for now.
You know what? We might do a part 3 later on down the road. But not
Yeah,
right
maybe
now.
down the road we'll have a
Okay.
little bit more. But we hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned a lot about one of my favorite topics, wine.
Thanks very much for listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening,
And remember, you can catch up on past episodes at infoquench.com.
or just about anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
And help spread the word about InfoQuench.
Till next time.